caught my eye. I just wanted to know what your thoughts were on it, how it came about, and where you see it as being a good thing for the city.
It came about as a more attractive choice among several bad choices. What's driving it is cities and towns have been increasing property taxes over the last several years. In our case, not so much because of budget growth, as much as exponential budget growth in energy costs and healthcare costs, and just the fact that grand list growth cannot keep pace with it, and because whatever grand list growth we have is halved because so much of the grand list is tax exempt. And it was a recognition that the state was unlikely to finance and support the typical vehicles that help cities and towns: payment in lieu of taxes, the education cost sharing grant, the Pequot Haven distribution. These are the major grants to cities and towns, that they were unlikely to put state money into that. And as we were talking as mayors, what we recognized is we need some vehicle to generate more revenue. We came up with that, and it's based on the idea that these middle-income property taxpayers can't keep taking these property tax increases. In New Haven last year, we froze the property taxes of many senior citizens, but what's happening is these folks in the middle are just getting squeezed because the property taxes, unlike the income tax, takes money from you irrespective of your ability to pay. So I don't think we felt it was a great choice, but in lieu of substantive tax reform in the state, in lieu of them, the state legislature pushing more money towards the traditional grant programs, it was sort of the best of a bad bargain.
Do you believe the claims that it would make either people shop in another town or make retailers head for another town to do business in?
Depends. If you're IKEA, you're not going to go to, I think, IKEA in White Plains because of this. If you're going to McDonald's and spending $10, I doubt the 10 cents is going to make you go someplace else. If you're buying a car, it might. If you're buying a refrigerator, I suppose that it might. Again, not the best of things to want to do, but given the choice here, it's forcing, as we look at so many foreclosures in the city and so many places around the state, it just seemed like the best choice.
You see it in a way as shifting some of the burden onto folks who obviously would be buying things here but don't live here, right? I mean, it would be paid. Do you have any idea how much of it would be paid by people who don't live here?
Of the $22 million it would generate for the city, I can't specifically say how much of it would be paid for by people outside the city. My sense is most of it. I think really the advantage of it is right now we have two principal sources of income. Our first is state aid. Our second is the property tax here in New Haven. State aid is going to be dramatically impacted by the state's financial condition, which I think would be fair to characterize as worsening. If it's worsening for them, it's going to worsen for us. Yeah. Property taxes are holding in the city, but having acknowledged growth of 1.7% in the last grand list, I'd be less than honest if I didn't acknowledge I'm concerned about what I'm seeing happen in the housing market in Connecticut, and that might impact property taxes in the city. And so what this is a little bit of diversification of the revenue base. So it's like having a table with more legs. It makes it a little bit stronger.
Yeah. Have other cities done this well, done this to great effect, as you know?
Most cities around the country have more sources of revenue than Connecticut does. Yeah. Connecticut is not what they call a home rule state in the poli-sci books. So it is something that's more characteristic of what we see with other states, and only something we arrive at after working very hard to get our cost increase down next year to 4.7%.
The bill also would permit municipalities to enact an income tax. Is that something you'd want to do?
No. There are several bills up in the General Assembly around this. There's one very permissive one that allows you to piggyback any tax. We feel, frankly, politically, it's going to be difficult to get anything done this session, short session. To get this done, if the governor would even sign it, would be a major accomplishment.
Okay. Why doesn't the state fully fund the pilot payment to cities?
Have to ask the state that. You know,
What's your understanding of it?
Well, my sense is got competing interests. They don't see this as a necessity. I think the implications of that are dramatic for South Central Connecticut because our pilot payment in lieu of tax number is actually going down from this year to next year for reasons that the state has capped the amount of money they're putting into it. And if you think about it, think of all the property that's becoming tax exempt and pilot eligible. For instance, Bayer Pharmaceuticals, which was the largest taxpayer in West Haven, is now owned by my favorite tax exempt, the favorite taxpayer, Yale University, and the Anthem campus, the old Blue Cross Blue Shield campus in North Haven, is now owned by Quinnipiac University and is slowly transitioning from taxable to tax exempt too. So it's not just what's happening in New Haven and all these other communities as our economy, as it is connected to these knowledge-based enterprises, become more knowledge-based, we're seeing more property come off tax rolls. And because the state's not putting in more money, everybody gets less.
What kind of odds would you give the local sales tax bill of becoming law?
50-50.